What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American now living in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And if you want to know why I am leaving Sierra Leone to go to Tanzania, then this is the video for you. If you're watching the replay, what's up, guys? Welcome to the live. If you're watching the replay, welcome to the replay. If you're watching live, welcome to the live. Again, my name is Joe Hatagwa. I go by Joe. Many people call me Joe. And I'm a Sierra Leonean American living in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And today's live is going to be about why I'm going to Tanzania. So we got a special guest on to talk about the reason for going. And but before we do get into all of that, first I want to make sure you guys can hear me. So we're live everywhere. We're live on TikTok, we're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we are live on Twitch. If you have any questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Do you have any? Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up so that I know you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat so I know you can hear me. Juliette Bennette says you also ran away from Ghana. When are you gonna settle, bro? There's good question. We'll talk about it. Tim Black says, hello, great to see you. What's up, Tim Black? Thank you. Can you guys hear me? I still don't know if you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up so I know you guys can hear me. I want to know from you guys on TikTok, can you hear me? I see you guys waving. Okay. So Takio Divine says you guys can hear me. Cool. By the way, if you want to watch along with the presentation and see our guest today, that link is in my profile. Just click on the link in the profile and that'll take you to my link tree. Just click join us live on YouTube and that'll take you directly to the live. Takio saying come to Egypt. I have been to Egypt. I will be going back sometime soon, but I have been to Egypt. What's up? We got Sun-Kissed Beauty from Houston, checking in from Houston. What's up? Okay, can you guys hear me on TikTok and on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram? I mean, Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, good. So Tim Black says you guys can hear me on all the other platforms. Great. All right, so before we get into everything, in terms of the topic of this live, I do want to do some housekeeping really quickly for those of you who are new and who are not as familiar with me. Again, if you guys are just joining, we are talking about why I am leaving Sierra Leone and going to Tanzania. So stay tuned because we're going to talk all about it. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and share this with anybody you know who is planning on coming to the continent or is interested at all in anything happening in Africa. All right. So while I have you all, let's quickly get into some housekeeping. So obviously, like, comment, subscribe, share this with anybody you know. Whether you're watching the replay or watching live, make sure you do that so that people can keep up to date with what's going on and also are aware of what's happening on the continent. So some services that we launched last week that I want to remind you all of, since some of you are new and you guys haven't all been here. There are some consulting services that I now make available to people. If you want to do one-on-one calls with me, you can call me directly. We'll set up a meeting invite and then we'll talk, and then I'll actually share my number with you directly so that we can have one-on-one communication. But I do have consulting services. So first of which is in Ghana, second of which is in Sierra Leone. So I'll run through what I'm doing in Ghana, then we'll run through what I do in Sierra Leone, and then we'll get into today's topic. But before we do, Orlanda Clark says Tanzania is also on my list. Nice. You definitely have to go. I'm looking forward to it later this year. And we'll talk about how you can join me there. And Kwame says, hi, how are you? And everyone, I'm doing very well. I hope you're doing well too. All right, cool. So let's talk about the consulting services in Ghana really quickly. So really quick, one, airport concierge services, as I mentioned before, local needs. So that's everything from a SIM number, phone card, driver contacts, all that kind of stuff, and then local recommendations. So I've done a bunch of videos on these on YouTube, but I also have a lot of restaurant recommendations that I can make, even ones that I haven't done videos on, nightlife recommendations, tour recommendations, hotels, Airbnb tips and recommendations, all of that, if you're interested. In terms of other consulting services, I also have Ghana residency services. So if you need your Ghana registration, mobile network registration for mobile money, residency permit, all of that, business feasibility in goods, importation and clearance. So if your business will work in Ghana, we can talk about that. I've had this conversation with someone recently. They had some great ideas, but we had to talk through what some of the challenges might be that they'd run into. And then business registration services, I can assist with that as well. Renting, buying, and building a house is also something I can help with in Ghana. So here are all the examples of things that I can do. And then let's talk about Sierra Leone consultative services. So visiting Sierra Leone, moving to Sierra Leone, or buying land in Sierra Leone. Those are all things that I can help you do because those are all things that I've done multiple times. I've visited Sierra Leone 10 times in 6 years. And I moved to Sierra Leone 10 weeks ago now. And I've also bought land in Sierra Leone twice and have been helping build on land another time as well. So very familiar with the process in Sierra Leone, so I can help you through that process. Now, if you want to book a consulting call with me, again, you can go to my page on Instagram, authentic_African. Click on the profile link and or on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, click on the profile link there. That'll bring up the link tree with the red background. And if you scroll down, it might even be the second thing there. It says book private one-on-one 1 hour long consultation about Africa. Just click on that and that'll show you how to book that time with me. And we can have that one-on-one consultation. Okay, so that's the background. Now let's talk about Tanzania. I'm going to Tanzania. Tanzania, here I come. And we're going to talk about why in a second. But before we do, someone by the name of Jay's Life Out Loud says, I'm in Tanzania, got here Saturday. Nice. There's another Jay who we're interviewing today, who's also in Tanzania. And I think he just got there recently as well. So I'm not sure if you're on his trip, but yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. Kwame says, wow, your services sound very good. Yes, they are. So book them if you're interested. All right, cool. So let's get into this, me leaving Sierra Leone and going to Tanzania. Because there's a lot to unpack here. So first of all, thank you all for being here this long. I am not moving to Tanzania. I am going to Tanzania. So let's be very clear on that. I know someone at first said you also ran away from Ghana. Why aren't you going to settle? I am settled right now, for now, in Sierra Leone, but I am going to be going back and forth between Sierra Leone and Ghana and many other places around the continent. But I am going to Tanzania for a visit this time, and we'll see if there are any other longer term opportunities. But this is for a visit, and I am going with Jay Cameron and Maximum Impact. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about who Jay is. So first, let me bring Jay on. So Jay is an entrepreneur, speaker, playwright, author, event producer, coach, content creator, the multi-hyphenate individual. And Jay and I got a chance to meet through Leslie Jones, actually. She had mentioned that she was going to be going on one of his trips and that she was an affiliate. And I had seen some of his content before, and we got a chance to meet virtually. And I look forward to meeting in person. And I'm really excited to be going on this trip that Jay has. But before we even talk about the trip, I wanted to give you a chance to maybe do a little bit of some background on you and your business so people understand a little bit more about who you are and about Maximum Impact. So first of all, Jay, thanks for doing this and welcome to the live.
Well, Joe, thank you for inviting me to be a part, and thanks everyone for taking time out of your schedules to join us. As Joe said, my name is Jay Cameron, and I'm the founder of Maximum Impact Travel. And really, our goal is to bridge the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. As we see, you have a tremendous passion for it because you're there in Sierra Leone. I'm actually a dual citizen, Sierra Leone as well. So. Yeah. And so that it's exciting, exciting times to see so many people taking an interest today and exploring the continent of Africa. For many of us, we grew up not even having an interest in going to Africa, or we were afraid of Africa, or we had a lot of bad information about the continent of Africa with more than 50 countries. And so what we do is we help people discover different parts of Africa, and it's always a wonderful experience to see how people change as a result of traveling and seeing for themselves versus listening to someone else. So that's a short, brief background on what we do, and I'm looking forward to you joining us as well.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. So just a quick shout out to you. So Kwame says Jay is a cool person who is putting in the work. There you go.
Thanks, Kwame.
All right, cool. So so we got a little bit of your background, and I always have a little bit of a hard time with this tongue twister. Arlitilho says, God bless you, my brothers. All right, same to you, right back at you. So so you talked a little bit about maximum impact. Is there anything else you want to mention about maximum impact in terms of where you go and your process for deciding what countries you go to? Because I know many of the countries are on the continent of Africa, but you do have countries outside of Africa. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that in terms of like how you select your countries, and then when you do, what research you do before you actually start taking trips there.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great discussion. Remember, the theme is bridging the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. So we consider the different countries and territories where those who descend from the continent have been dispersed throughout the world. We consider them a part of the African family because they descend from the continent of Africa. So we'll go places like Brazil and Cuba and Honduras and Colombia and Costa Rica and Jamaica because those are also a part of this broader African diaspora, including you can also include on the continent of Africa, South Africa, Egypt. I'm in Tanzania right now, or for some they say Tanzania, Kenya, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin. And the way that we select these destinations is based upon the history that we've been able to gather. And so I personally go to each destination before we take the first person. And oftentimes I'll go as many as 3 times because we're serious about making sure that the experience is safe, smooth, and fun. And that's what we do. And so, right, here I am in Tanzania, but this is like my 7th time in Tanzania because 1, because I love it. 2, because we want everyone to be able to come and enjoy and know that someone has taken the time to actually be here instead of just trying to book it on a computer or just trying to, hey, all right, I'm just trying to do this the easy way, but actually coming and getting to meet the people. And then another thing that we're very adamant about doing with our team is our staff on the ground in these different locations. We make sure that they're compensated well beyond what many of the local, what they would make on a local level. Oftentimes we'll pay them 3 to 4 times more than what they would make typically. So we take all of that into consideration. Then on top of that, when it comes to our clients, we like to make sure that they have the best experience that we can curate. So we think through the psychology of the trip. We look at the timing of the trip. We look at all of the little nuances that, I've been on trips before that clearly somebody didn't think through. So we come and just, do dress rehearsals. That's really what it is before we bring someone the first time. My theater background taught me the value of a good dress rehearsal, a good tech rehearsal before going on that live show.
Nice. Excellent. Very well put. Okay. So I think a couple of quick comments that came up. Kwame says, I'm glad to see Africans highlighting each other. And Arlitilho says, and a big hug to you both from Sao Tome and Principe, which he's the one who they put me on to the islands, the 6 islands that are off the continent of Africa that I'm familiar with one, but the others I wasn't as familiar with. So shout out to Arlitilho for that, for the education.
Portuguese there in Arlitilho and in Sao Tome and Principe. All right, but it's Portuguese.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah, because it was a live a few weeks ago where he definitely was like, "There's 6 islands." He gave me the whole breakdown in the comments. I was like, "Thank you," because I needed that. Cool. So let's get back to the presentation and talk a little bit more about what is going on. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because you talked a little bit about bridging the gap between the diaspora and Africans. And but specifically Africa, right? So you've had obviously many trips to the continent, and there are many reasons why you keep coming back and why you encourage others to come. I know that some of them are listed here, but I'd love for you to talk about some of the things for those people who grew up in the States, who don't have a direct connection to the continent, because I think we haven't talked about that, right? But you grew up as a Black American or an African American without your parents being from Africa, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas my experience is my parents are both from Sierra Leone, so I kind of had a little bit of a connection to a country. But for you, you did the African Ancestry, and that was how you found out your DNA, and then you did the African Ancestry. So can you talk about what that was like for you coming to the continent, and what are some of the reasons why other people who've never gotten a chance to experience it should come? I know you have some listed here, but whatever you could speak to, I'd love to hear from your perspective on that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, raised in Washington, D.C., and really didn't have an interest in visiting the continent of Africa, other than maybe as a bucket list item one day I would get to, because the way that it was always presented is that it was this distant land that you had to get all these shots to go to, that you had to go through all of these hoops in order to get there. So I just was, busy doing life and living life and trying to figure out how to navigate America. But about 5 years ago, I realized that I had spent all of my life and I had not visited the continent of Africa. And I decided that, I was going to take this visit to this little country in West Africa called Ghana. And when I went, it literally changed my life, and it changed the trajectory of my life, because I realized how much of what I had heard about the continent was either severely one-sided, or flat out untrue, or just presented in a way that made it unappealing. But when I got there and I saw for myself, I was like, wow. So back to that list that was highlighted. Well, one, I didn't understand how many different countries were in Africa. My mindset was, okay, I'm going to Africa, and over in Africa, this is what they do, and the Africans this and the Africans that. But then when I got to Ghana and I saw all the diversity within, and when I say diversity, I'm not talking about racial or diversity. It was cultural and ethnic diversity, down to the languages, down to the practices. You began to see that even with the 50 plus countries, when you got to a micro level, how very intriguing and interesting the different ethnic groups were. But then I saw these beautiful beaches, and I looked and I said, wait a minute. I said, they had me thinking that this place was just some place you didn't want to come to. So I'm out in Zanzibar, and I'm out in Zanzibar now. That's why it just came to my mind. And I'm looking at it like anything in the Caribbean, tropics, the food. It was very reminiscent of the food I would have growing up in South Carolina. The fashion, you would see how the clothes from the kente to the different designs, just the overall culture. And then climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, that was part of the adventure. And then the warmth of the people and how kind everybody was. Growing up in America, they said, well, if you go over to Africa, those people aren't going to like you. They're not going to receive you. And I did not have that problem. And I felt some kind of way about that, because I missed out on so many kind experiences because I was kind of listening to other people who had never been. And so I was going through that, and it just changed my whole worldview. And now that I'm here and having visited 21 African countries since then, it's just changed me as a person. And that's what I want other people to experience, because I've watched other people have that change as well.
Nice. I have nothing to add there. That was very well put. So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit too about the expands your mind and the education base, because I know I watched your documentary, the Tanzania documentary, and in that there was some conversations there that were enlightening, and so I think it's great, of course, to experience the fun, the jet skiing, and all of that. But what I love about these different trips to these different countries is the knowledge transfer. And so you mentioned here the education base, expand your mind in your education base. Can you talk a little bit about that, just in general, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that works in Tanzania as well?
Sure. Traveling to the continent of Africa and some of the other African diaspora destinations expanded my mind and my education base, because in the United States, because some people say, don't say America, because, you know, all of the Americas are included, Central America, South America, but the United States, our education system has a tendency to focus exclusively on the US. And when it comes to Black history in the US, it's typically come from the standpoint of, okay, when Africans arrived in the United States, this is what they went through. And almost like their history started once they arrived to the United States. Like they didn't have a history that predated the approximate date of 1619. So before 1619, basically, they were these obscure people who were just living like whatever, wherever they came from, supposedly Africa. And then, you know, then they came to the United States, suddenly got civilized, and now everything got better for them. That's the way that it was presented. But when I went and I visited the continent of Africa, starting in Ghana, I began to understand that this history went far beyond that. And you know, some people say, well, it was, you know, back then it was 2018, and that we should automatically have an interest in wanting to know these things. But the reality is, a lot of people still don't. You know, it's 43 million Black Americans, and trust me, 43 million Black Americans are not interested in this topic until it's presented to them in a way to show the similarities between what happened with colonization and what happened with United States chattel slavery. And then what you begin to realize is that United States chattel slavery was late to the whole process. Then there was Brazilian chattel slavery, and then Haitian chattel slavery, and then all of what was going on in Colombia and Venezuela and Panama, all up through there. And you start, this is where the education base comes in, because it helped me to realize that what Black Americans went through was really no different than what was going on in those different other colonies, the Spanish colonies and the French colonies. And so as I began to understand that, it gave me a broader context to my story and to the story of so many others. And that's when I started exploring. When I went to Brazil and I saw all the Black Brazilians that outnumber Black Americans almost 3 to 1. And you're like, wow, I didn't know that this place existed like this. Every time I saw Brazil on TV, it was always fair-skinned Brazilians. But there's a whole population that's almost 3 times the amount of Black Americans that's in Brazil, and we don't really know about them, you know. So it's those types of things started me to dig deeper into the history of the continent of Africa. And then I started learning about the depth of colonization and what colonization did and its lasting impact to this day, and why it's important for us to go back and learn and see, understanding global economics and how that ties into everything. And you know, how is it that I can come to this continent that I descend from and rarely see people who come from where I come from in abundance, you know, unless it's, you know, you'll find certain places where it's like that, but I'll see everyone from Europe, I'll see everyone from Asia, I'll see everyone from the Middle East building their dream all over the continent. And so I knew at that point there was an education gap. And if I didn't do something, you know, play my small part in it, then, you know, how would this, it was almost like I had a responsibility to now share what I was learning with those who wanted to learn it.
Nice. Well put. There's a couple of comments. A bunch of people saying truth, facts, interesting. So Ms. Mimi says interesting. Our says facts. Cheryl says truth. Yeah, speaking facts and truth. Okay, so and a couple people on YouTube here. So we got Jambarr is watching from DC. My man Deshawn. Okay, you know Jambarr. Of course, Deshawn. Of course, DiBodi, my Salone brothers. What's up? What's up? Nobody find out.
There he is. There he is.
Deshawn. Tim Black says, I would love to visit the African continent, but not North Africa. North Africans feel okay. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. And moving on. So our Arthillo says, I don't see my African-American brothers here in Sao Tome and Principe. That's a good point. I don't know as many people are as familiar with Sao Tome and Principe. As someone who lives on the continent, who has 2 parents who were born and raised on the continent, I myself was not aware of all the 6 islands. You know, obviously everyone knows about Cape Verde, right? And that's it. That's mostly what I hear about, but like the other islands, people are unfamiliar with. So I think we have to do a better job of maybe sharing that with the world so people know about it. But yeah, obviously Jay knows because he mentioned you guys speak Portuguese, so he was aware. I'm
a strange case here. I'm a strange case.
Yeah, I would say an outlier for sure. Okay, cool. So I do want to get into the Tanzania trip in particular, right? Because that's what everybody's here for, right? Why are you guys here? You guys want to hear about Tanzania and why I'm going to Tanzania. So it's, I think this was titled the East African Adventure, right? Oh, yes. So it's Tanzania and Zanzibar, Safari and Islands excursion. So let's talk about it. So do you want to give like a brief overview? I mean, it says get to know Tanzania and Zanzibar like never before. Yeah, but I think you might do a better job of doing it if you want to just kind of give an overview of the trip to Tanzania and Zanzibar and why you chose this trip.
Absolutely. Well, Tanzania and Zanzibar, just so everybody understands, Zanzibar is actually a part of Tanzania, but it wasn't always. You had what used to be known as Tanganyika. That's the mainland that we know of as Tanzania. And then you had Zanzibar, which is an island off the coast of what used to be known as Tanganyika. So the two of them merged and created the country we know as Tanzania or Tanzania, just depending on who's making the pronunciation. It was formerly colonized by the Germans, and then the British had it. And it's really fascinating history, you know, when you get to understand the dynamics that occurred during the scramble for Africa. But what's very interesting about Tanzania is the fact that it's the backdrop for the movie that we know called The Lion King, the Serengeti. And what the Serengeti is basically a safari land, but when you go into the Serengeti, it's almost like going into a different world. And when I went to the Serengeti for the first time, it's like I felt like I was transported into both versions of the Lion King movie. I could see Pride Rock, I could see the gorge, I could see all of the wildebeests and the zebras, and I could see how they interacted with each other and how accurate the movie really was. I did not get a chance to talk to Simba, even though I saw Simba and Nala lookalikes out there, but it was just a fascinating experience. And so what I decided to do, this actually came on the heels of me climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And what I decided to do was to curate an experience where people could visit the Serengeti in Tanzania and go experience the tropics in Zanzibar. They're two different worlds, literally two different worlds. I'm here now with a group, and they're having a time of their lives because they were just in the Serengeti. So in the dry season, so they didn't have a lot of rain out there, but you know, they did the hot air balloon, they flew over, and they saw, we can go through some of the days. I'll touch on all of that. And then we came out here to the tropical island of Zanzibar, and they had a chance to see, you know, it rained out here a little bit, but it was good because they were able to go to the beaches, they were able to see the colobus monkeys, they were able to go to the butterfly sanctuary, they were able to taste the different foods. So they're just having this 5-sensory, well-rounded experience. And I don't like to call them trips because it's just like you talked about, you know, when you share with everyone how I'm into productions and theater, that's really how we think about these trips. And that's why this is much more than a trip. It's an experience. And it's something that, you know, for someone who has a heart to do it, this is what I believe in doing and love sharing with people. It's so much more. And they were like, this is more than I ever expected. I was thinking this, and I was thinking I was going to, but this is so much more. And that's what you keep hearing, the recurring theme over and over. So let's dive into some of the days, and I can give everybody the rundown.
Sounds good. Let's do it. All right, cool. So let's start with day one. So arrival. What is day one like when you first arrive in Tanzania?
All right, well, that's cool. Well, day one is pretty much the day when everybody's coming in, and most people come in at different times. We do not have airfare as a part of the package, so people are coming in, meaning international airfare. So people are coming in at different times. So based upon whenever someone is coming in, they'll be picked up from the airport. So you don't have to worry about airport transfers. You don't have to worry about, you know, how am I going to get to the hotel? Our team will be there to pick you up, take you to the hotel, and then you can get settled and get ready for the welcome dinner. And all of our trips have welcome dinner set up to give everyone an opportunity to meet one another in person and get the briefing for the trip that's about to happen. So that's what happens on day one. You come, you get the welcome dinner, and then after the welcome dinner, you get ready for day two, which, and just to let everybody know that this particular trip, breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all included in the pricing. So just that's a good note. Some of our trips don't have that, but this particular trip has breakfast, lunch, and dinner included. That does not include beverages, obviously, because people can beverage their way a long way. But just to kind of put that in there, because yeah, can I get that another rum and coke? Let me get another gin and whatever. So, but the next day is when everyone heads to the Serengeti. And going to the Serengeti. Now, I'd let everybody know it's a ride. You know, you're going through the wilderness. If you're going to go out to where the animals are, you have to go to where they are. They're not going to come to you. This is not a zoo. This is us going into their world. So you're really starting your safari when you leave from Arusha. And so Arusha is a city right not too far from the airport, from Kilimanjaro, I should say. And so you head out towards the Serengeti. And so while on your way to the Serengeti, you have an opportunity to visit a Maasai village, a traditional Maasai village, a real Maasai village with the Maasai people, and have that experience of them welcoming you. You get a chance to go to the Ngorongoro crater. If you're going to the Serengeti and you don't go to the crater, you have missed out on something special. And so you get a chance to take your game drive on the way to the Serengeti through the Ngorongoro crater. And then you'll see animals along the way. And then you arrive in the Serengeti at your luxury tent camp. So when people hear this, they're thinking, okay, this is a tent. I'm sleeping on the ground. But no, you have a full bed. Just like you have a bed at home, you have a full shower, bathroom, everything. You are in, it's like literally like a hotel room that's out in the Serengeti, but it's like a house tent. That's the best way to say it. So there's no worries there. But you are definitely connected with nature. You have everyone who has the experience, especially with the way that we deliver it, they love it. And you're there for 2 nights. So you're there 2 nights. We don't do overload on the safaris. You know, you get out there the first night, you spend the night, then the next morning is when you have the optional hot air balloon ride. And that's something that everyone, we were out to dinner tonight talking about it. And everyone talked about how, wow, you know, they talked about the animals they saw, they talked about the whole experience, and it was so much more than what they expected. And for those who are afraid of heights, I definitely understand it, but it's not as intimidating as what you think. So definitely consider it, because you get a chance to see the world from a different perspective as you glide across the Serengeti. You can look down and you can see the elephants and the lions and the zebras and the wildebeest and the warthogs, and I mean the hippos and rhinos, giraffes. You can see so many different animals when you're above, in addition to when you're on the ground. So you have that happening on day 3. You get up early in the morning, you have that, and then you have a special breakfast once you land, and that has the mango and champagne, if you like. For those who don't drink, you don't have to get the champagne. But you have an opportunity to get breakfast. And we are mindful of those who are vegan and vegetarians, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you continue. There you go. Then you continue with the game drive on day 4. And then you're headed back out on your way to Zanzibar. And so when you get back so you'll drive back out of the Serengeti, and you'll stop in Kilimanjaro. It's a city right outside of Kilimanjaro. And then you spend the night there, because, you know, it's going to be definitely, you know, after you're out in the Serengeti and you've gone through all of that, the roads can get a little bumpy just because you're in their land. So you do that, you come back, spend the night, and get ready to travel to Zanzibar the following day. So you spend a night in Kilimanjaro. The next morning you get up, you travel to Zanzibar, and when you get to Zanzibar, it's a flight. It's about a 45-minute flight to Zanzibar. When you get there, we have a special activity. And the special activity, everybody is blown away by. So I can't tell you what it is, but just trust me. If you see right there, and give you a little clue that this special activity is something that's the perfect wind down after the activities in the Serengeti. Maybe might be still be dealing with some lingering jet lag. Hey, if you are, this is the perfect activity, and we make it worth your while. I've been told I know how to throw a party, so that's all I've been told. That my groups have been saying, hey, Jay, I know you know how to throw a party, so that's should have put party promoter on that list too. So that happens on day 5. You have, again, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you, after the activity, you get a chance to wind down and then get ready for day 6, which is happening. You get a chance to go into Stone Town. You do the Stone Town tour, you do the Spice tour, and then you do Prison Island, and then you do Stone Town tour. So when you go to the Spice tour, Zanzibar is a cluster of islands, and they're known as the Spice Islands. And you get to learn the history of the spices. You get a chance to have a firsthand smell, taste, touch, see. And if you want to purchase the spices, you can do that. Then after doing the Spice tour, we head over to the island, which is known as Prison Island, and you get a chance to see the giant tortoises and learn even more of the history of Prison Island. So this, when you go to Prison Island, it is on a boat. It takes about 20 minutes to get there. It's fine. So many people are there when you arrive. So we do encourage you to, bring your, it's a very comfortable trip. So you don't need to wear anything formal. Everything is casual. Then after Prison Island, we'll come back and get a chance to get something to eat and do a small Stone Town tour. And then because we do offer, there's another Stone Town portion that we do, which walks you through the East African slave trade. And this is where the educational component comes in. So now you're into the tropics, you have the Serengeti, you have all of those elements, but now you start getting into the East African history and understanding that the Arabs were involved in a slave trade that actually predated the European chattel slave trade. And that was very enlightening. You get a chance to go to those dungeons for those who want to go. And as you see here in the picture, you begin to see that on the continent of Africa, although there were different forms of slavery that manifested themselves, whether it was through the trans-Saharan slave trade, or the East African Arab slave trade, or the European chattel slave trade in the West, you begin to see that there was a theme. And interestingly enough, the Portuguese even found their way into Zanzibar. And you see their architecture, and when you begin to see their architecture, you're like, wow, this looks very familiar. For those who've been to West Africa and you've seen their architecture in West Africa, you're like, wow. For those who've been to Kenya and you've seen their architecture in Kenya or in South Africa, you start to see how these dots connect, and you start to realize, wait a minute, this was really a global system that was happening even as far back as 500 years ago. So anyway, with that, you get to dive into a little bit more of the history. You're still tasting the food. The food is very familiar. Just to let you know, you typically do 70% familiar food and 30% local food. So don't worry about whether or not you're going to be able to eat. You'll eat just fine. No worries there. So that happens on day 6, and then you move into day 7. And then on day 7, you go to the Jozani monkey forest. And that's where we were today. That's where we are on this particular trip. And the monkeys are right there. I mean, you see grown people like become little kids because the monkeys are right there, minding their business, not even thinking about anybody or what's going on. But you go into their world, and it's just like, wow. And so if you want to, there's some other optional activities that you can participate in. If you want to go spend time with the cheetahs, you can do that at Cheetah's Rock. That's an option. And we'll let you know about that. Or if you're interested, you can let us know about that in advance. But you go to the monkey forest, you go to the mangrove forest and the mangroves that grow here in Zanzibar. And then after that, we have lunch, and then we go to Paje Beach. And Paje Beach is something to see. You see all of the kite surfers. You see people, the Maasai are there. It's just a chill place. And for those who love the beach, you have that time on the beach, and that happens on day 7. Then on day 8, you have some free time, because folks are wondering, hey, am I going to have an opportunity to get out and about and just do my own thing? Absolutely. If you want to shop, all the shoppers out there, I know many of you are excited about doing that. So you can shop, you can jet ski, you can snorkel, you can skydive, you can deep sea dive, you can do deep sea fishing, you can do ATVs. All of this is available on your free day to explore, and you can rest if you like to. A lot of activities available. It's up to you to do whatever you want to do on day 8. And then on day 9, we return to Kilimanjaro. And it'll be a little bit later in the day, so everybody has a chance to rest. And then there's also a morning activity where we do take you back to Stone Town for those who are interested, to be able to spend, for those who want to spend some more time in that area, you can. And then we catch the flight back to Kilimanjaro and then spend the night in Kilimanjaro. And then for day 10, that's when you head on out to go back home. So everything is well thought out. This is a very comprehensive trip. Travel experience again, and Joe's going to be there. So that's you're joining us, and so I'm excited about that, and looking forward to everyone signing up with Joe and making sure that you are part of this experience. It is well worth it. You live one time. That's what I tell people all the time. You live one time, and I know so many people bucket list. I'm gonna get to it one day, and before you know it, they kick the bucket before they get the thing off the bucket list, and it's like they get scratched off the bucket list. It's like, no, we have to stop that. We now take charge of it and do it ourselves, and that's what I'm seeing. People from all ages, children ages 3 to adults 93, and everything in between, because we're recognizing that if everybody else in the world can travel and see it, why can't we? And why can't we place an emphasis on this beautiful continent of Africa? So we're looking forward to you joining Joe in Tanzania coming up, and any other trips that Joe's connected to. He'll have the links. Yep. Tap into his links and make sure that you join us.
Absolutely. And then on that note, how can you join us, right? So I have it up on the screen here. And then those of you who are watching on TikTok and Instagram, if you're watching the replays, just listen along. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can go to the link in my description. So in the link in my description, either it's on TikTok at authentic__African. I know it's 2 underscores. And on Instagram, authentic_African. Just go to the link in the profile, click on that link, and you will see it says Authentic African East African Adventure Tanzania, October 7th through the 16th, 2023. In Zanzibar in Tanzania. So just click on that link and that'll give you all the information. You can download the brochure and you can get more information. I don't know how much more you can get than what you just got just now, but it'll give you the details at least on how you can book your travel and all of that. And the dates and all of that, if you need to just make sure you can, tell your employers that you need to take the time off. So all of that is there. I do want to get to some of the questions, comments, and thoughts that I might have missed. There were some comments just about Africa in general. Eric B, great name, by the way. In my opinion, most of the East African government, they do a better job with infrastructure and taking care of the people better than West African leaders. I don't know if we want to speak necessarily to the leaders, because we want to survive and live. But maybe do you want to speak to this, Jay? Because as someone who's traveled, you said 21 countries on the continent.
21, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you want to speak to your experience in West Africa versus East Africa, or even Southern Africa and Northern Africa? Sure. I guess you've been in all parts of the continent.
Yeah, it's a great discussion. Hey, Eric, what's going on? Well, it really goes back to, and unfortunately, and sometimes people don't like when I say this, but it's just an observation of mine. It really goes back to who colonized the particular area and how they treated it. And so I see in East Africa in particular, you had where the British, they were they pretty much set up shop in Kenya. And then Tanzania came later with, after they got it from the Germans. So you see the infrastructure in places like Kenya that were, it's very quote unquote developed and according to their standards, according to Western standards. And you see that based on the money is, when you look at this, you see how the money flows. You see who, the upper echelon, when I say upper echelon, not in necessarily in a good sense, but you see who controls the flow of the money. And when you start bringing in those entities, you see where the different places have been established. Like South Africa is extremely developed. It's no different than America. It's literally, you can take South Africa, you can put Cape Town in any American city, But that's where you see the money flow. When you look at West Africa, unfortunately, what happened in many cases is that was the place that was extracted from the most. It's kind of like when I say the most, meaning it was extracted from the most, but it was not replenished the most. And so if you look at, say, someplace like Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, you could tell the French particularly care for those places because of how the French money flowed into it, even to this day. Now, the reality is the French still control the currency in Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire and Togo and Benin and Mali. I could go in, not so much Guinea, but you can start going through there and start seeing the Francophone countries and who controls the money there, Cameroon, and you start looking and saying, okay, so to speak to that, I don't know if it's the government leaders that really have any control over it, because, I know a lot of times we think colonization is over, but you just kind of follow the dollar and follow the CD or follow the shilling or follow the CFA, and it'll kind of tell you exactly who's still running the show. But you do see that the Western development does appear to be more prevalent in East Africa versus West Africa, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily the government leaders that are the reason behind it.
There you go. I think there's a comment that says West Africa is currently being exploited more. East Africa is being exploited still, but slightly less degree than West. I guess there's some agreements there for some of the people who are joining. Okay, and Eric B is saying R.I.P. to the late president of Tanzania, and he wanted to shout out Paul Kagame and Kenya's President Ruto as well. Paul Kagame and Ruto are the ones who are more popular on the continent right now, the more popular of the presidents. Anytime I see any content posted on any of the presidents on the continent right now, it's those two. And then in close third is a political leader who's not in power, but Julius Malema is also another one that comes up a lot. So these are really popular leaders on the continent right now. Okay, cool. So Pro Woman Jay is saying, as an ad man, you might interest you to know on the way in, I saw an ad for Tony Robbins' event. And a financial QuickBooks-like business accounting software, just riding the algorithm. Interesting. That's what ads you saw. Okay. Okay. Interesting. I would say they spend the most, so I'm happy about that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. That's good to know, though. Finance is usually the highest amount that spends on advertising, so better CPMs. Anybody who knows about YouTube channel, that's a good thing. Sorry if it was annoying, though. I did put skippable ads, so hopefully you were able to skip it if you wanted to. Okay. Pro Woman said something. This is interesting. I don't know where this came from, but she said, you've said not enough men are traveling with you. Any plans to court more men to travel or to get more men to travel? I guess this must have been something you said somewhere else.
Yeah, on one of my reels on my YouTube channel. I talked about how when I went to Ghana for the first time that I didn't see any men. I mean, of course you see men who have melanin, but men who come from where I come from, I didn't see any Black American men when I went that particular time. Now, since I've seen brothers all over the continent, but not the same way I see sisters. And so I got to speak American vernacular now. So typically when brothers, when they've seen me, it kind of gives them the courage and the curiosity to say, let me check out what's going on over there. So I think my presence is helping, because I have not lost my Black American culture. I'm from DC, so I still got my go-go. I just did a post with the go-go, but I'm also Gullah Geechee, so I still love my red rice. And that's my connection to Sierra Leone. So I embrace all of my heritage. Then when I go to Ghana, I got to get my Banku and Wache. I'll be right back in Ghana in a couple of days. So it's those things. And I think when brothers see that, it's like, you know what? Let me live. I was just at an event a couple of days ago in DC. And the brother was like, he said, I'm 50 years old. And I've worked all this time. I just work. I said, brother, you got to live, man. Come on and live. He said, I need to live. I said, yeah. I said, so come on. I said, you got to trust me on this one. Trust me. Join me on the trip and let's see what happens. And so he's watching the channel. He's checking everything out. And he's like, wow. So that's what I'm saying. Like with Joe and what Joe was doing. Joe is helping to bridge the gap. And that's why he's becoming a part of these trips, because he's able to see it. So yes, we are definitely making an effort towards men across the board. We got a lot of people in the UK who watch and who follow. You have a lot of people in the Caribbean who watch and follow, a lot of people in Canada and other places on the continent of Africa. And they're saying, we want to come and explore Africa too, because we know our country, but we don't necessarily know our neighboring country because, you know, we're so busy trying to survive, but we want to go explore as well. And I think that's why what Joe is doing is so important.
Appreciate that. And you got some glowing testimonial here. Omar, which I've always known as Odiee99, but now I know it's Omar.
That's my man. Oh man.
I went to Ghana last August with Jay. The experience was life-changing, so much so that I returned last month. I'm trying to clear out my schedule for Tanzania. Don't hesitate, just go. There you go. There it is. So that's what Omar is saying, straight from the horse's mouth.
What's up, Omar? My man, my man. Oh man.
So Omar's been joining the live for a while now, so it's good to know. Omar, you got to go then. We get a chance to meet in person. And this, by the way, I've been trying to do meet and greets, and I know I promised meet and greets so many times, and it just never happened. But like now with these trips, these are the ways that we could do these meet and greets, right? Like, you know, obviously the Gambia trip was a little bit short notice. You guys couldn't come to that, but Tanzania is in October, Kenya is in December. You guys should come on these trips and let's do the meet and greet. Let's have these conversations in person. Let's figure out how we can bridge the gap and do more. Instead of just talking about it, let's be about it. Let's do something about it. Okay, cool. So Jerry Campbell said he's watching from DC. Shout out to Jerry.
NYC.
NYC. Why did I say DC? What is going on?
Hey, DC got it going on like that.
NYC. Because you said you're from DC. I think that's what's going on. Freudian slip. Okay, cool. And Jerry's saying that this particular president, Ms.S Magufuli, presented as the most progressive leader I've seen in the continent for a long time. There you go. Okay, cool. Well, guys, Jay, I want to thank you for taking the time to join the live. I know it's very late where you are right now. It is almost 1 a.m., if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I'm excited for everyone else who hasn't gotten a chance to get to the continent to at least make sure that you get some time to try to book this ticket to come with us, because this is going to be a game changer. I have never been to East Africa. This is something I have not done yet. And so this was on the bucket list. And I'm so excited to be joining Jay and the Maximum Impact team and going to Tanzania. Before we bring this to a close, you know what? Here's a quick question before we do. Pro Women Jay says, Jay, vid came up from your channel of you speaking at a conference and mentioning your business partner. What's your larger business? There's a question.
Oh, okay. Well, it's Maximum Impact Travel. It's Maximum Impact Enterprises. That's the best way to say it. So we actually are in education and really bridging the gap that way as well. But what we do is like what we're doing with Joe right now. This gives you a good example. How we reach more and more people is that we partner with other people and helping to reach them and their audiences and connect them better with their audiences by curating these experiences. So if you look what Joe was doing, that's why I say everybody go with Joe. You know, hey man, if you run for office, I gotta. But the reality is that you want to be able to go with people that you trust and people that you know and people who are consistent. And that's what Joe has been doing through his channel. He's consistently on here and delivering valuable information to the broader community. And so that's what I try to do, is create experiences that they can feel confident in sharing with their communities, and then also creating experiences that they can go on themselves. And so that's what you see happening with Joe. And so now he's going to be in East Africa. He's going to be other places as well, but he is one of our partners, our travel partners. And so you're going to be seeing more and more and hearing more and more. And that's what we do. That's how we bridge the gap. And so that's the context of what you saw on one of the videos that I shared, because I do speak, you know, I do. So you had a whole list there, Joe and me. So I do speak, and I go out and I share these principles because I'm about bridging the gap culturally, but also economically, and doing that in such a way where everyone can benefit. We create experiences where when someone spends their money, they know where their money's going, they're comfortable about it, and we do our very best to represent everyone's brand. with excellence. No one's brand is left behind because we understand the importance of it. And so that's what you saw. And so, hey, thank you for tuning in and following and watching. I definitely appreciate it. And make sure you go with Joe. That's the deal.
I love that. Go with Joe. A couple of things that I did not mention to begin with. First of all, I want to shout out Pearl, the Pearl Hotel on Lumley Beach, because they are always letting me use their penthouse suite to do these lives. You can't tell how big it is. They're doing some remodeling in here, so you can see it on the ceiling there. They're working on some stuff. But so I want to shout them out and Mars really quickly because he did allow me to use the space. And also, I completely forgot to mention, but last night I refreshed IG and I just hit 100,000 followers on Instagram. So I completely forgot to mention that. But really exciting times. And I want to thank all of you guys for sharing the platform, for saving the post, for liking the post, for commenting. All of that engagement has made sure that I've come out of the abyss and I'm actually showing up in people's feeds now. Because for a while, I feel like I was shadow banned for about a year. And so it looks like you guys have really done a great job of sharing the content and engaging with it. And now it's showing up in people's feeds. And I want to thank you guys all for joining, whether you're joining on Instagram right now, watching the replay, or you're joining anywhere else on YouTube or even on TikTok. You guys are the reason we hit 100K. And this was a goal for 2024. So just so you guys know, when this year started, my goal was only to get to 70K on IG this year. We hit that in, I don't know, March or April. And now we're at 100K. So now the new goal is 150K by the end of the year, maybe even 200K. We'll see what the new goal will be. But I want to thank you guys all for participating and helping me get there. So I did want to put that out there because I completely neglected to mention that. Really quickly, one more thing Pro Woman Jay has said is, yeah, I come to know and like and trust both of you. Can't say that for other YouTubers. Okay, I can't speak to other YouTubers. I'll leave that alone. But yeah, I'm glad that you feel that way. And so you guys should come on a trip with us. Oh, Jerry Campbell saying, well deserved. Congrats, Joe. You're doing great work. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. That's what I always say. It's not easy, but it's worth it. As long as I'm providing value to people, that's it. That's the thing that I want to do most. Deshawn is saying, great job, brothers. Can't wait until we all get to hang out together on the continent. I'm looking forward to it as well. Deshawn and I met in Sierra Leone last year when he came for his citizenship trip. And then later I found out that he's working with Jay. So it's a small world. We got, it's 2 degrees of separation when it comes to folks that are focused on the continent. Okay, cool. Well, Jay, I'll let you go. I don't know if there's anything else that you have that you want to share. I don't know if there's going to be any more questions or comments, but I do want to stay on and maybe answer some more questions if there are any more. But any final words, anything you have, Jay, that you want to mention before we go?
Well, the main thing I say to everyone is nothing to fear. It's nothing to overthink. Sometimes you just got to do it. And it's really a lot easier than what we think. And sometimes I tell people in one of the talks that I do, the hidden treasures of travel, sometimes we think, okay, what is it going to cost me to do this? And then I thought one day to myself, I said, what does it cost me not to do it? What does it cost me to stay within this particular boundary or not having this experience? And because I was willing to do what I needed to do in 2018, when I felt the prompting, and then again in 2019, when I felt the prompting to go and climb Kilimanjaro and do all those different things, because I did it in the timing I was supposed to do it. Right. When 2020 came, I was prepared for it. When COVID came and shut the world down, I had done what I was supposed to do prior to that, which prepared me for that year. And so what I say for everyone watching, sometimes we'll think about it. We'll say, oh, I'll get to it one day. When in actuality, for some of us, it's time for us to do it now, because what's on the other side of it are those hidden treasures that we can't see until we take that leap of faith and do it. So that's what I encourage you to do it. Join us this October in Tanzania, Zanzibar. I'll be there. Joe's going to be there. And we would love to meet you there in the Serengeti and in the tropics of Zanzibar. So that's what I have to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. And thank you for joining. I'll let you get to the rest of your night because I know it's late over there. It's past midnight. It's almost 1 o'clock. So thanks, Jay. And we'll catch up again soon.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on that 100K as well. I'm trying to come out of the abyss too, brother. I'm trying to teach me some things.
Thank you. We can have a session. We can have some conversation. I got some ideas.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Jay, man. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, cool. So I'll answer a couple more questions for you guys before we jump. I do have to go, but I see people are just joining now. So again, if you are just joining today, we just talked about the trip to Tanzania and why I'm going. Go back and watch the replay so you can catch all the details of the trip. We went into each day, and there's a ton of insight and information there. Jay has a wealth of knowledge because he's been to 21 countries, so he knows about the history of the continent. He knows much about the continent. So it wasn't just about this trip; it was a wide-ranging discussion. Jerry Campbell saying loads of value. Thank you. Kwame says love the evening love this evening's content from the pair of you. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Jerry Campbell says James seems like a good brother. I'll tap in with Maximum Impact Travel. Yes, do it through my link though. So go to the link in my description. You'll find everything there. Africalenisi says, I joined rather late. Good luck and thanks a lot for sharing and putting Africa in a positive light. Absolutely. It's important to share what's going on the continent and where we like to go and what we like to do. And Jay is a great example of that. He's built something really substantial here. And so I'm looking forward to going with him on this trip. So again, you guys know there's 2 trips happening this year. So far, there may be more. We'll see. As of right now, I have 2 more trips this year, going to Tanzania from the 7th through the 16th of October, and I'm going to Kenya from the 28th of December through the 8th of January of this year and into next year. So make sure you check that stuff out on my profile, link in my profile. Just go to my my link tree. You can click on the Kenya event. You can click on the East Africa Adventure event so you can get more details about what's going on there. Again, thank you guys so much for helping me get to 100K. It's crazy to hit that number. It's a nice round number. It makes my conversations with brands a lot easier to be able to hit that round number, to be able to say 100K. And so I want to thank you guys so much for that. Now we got to get the YouTube to 20K. That's what we need to do, because right now YouTube is under 10K. So we got to get that to 20K. I know the YouTube channels has been around a lot shorter than the Instagram page. So, you know, I got to be patient to get to that point, but you guys have helped it grow so much. We want to continue the growth and share it with more people, right? Pro Woman J says Tanzania, October, Kenya in December. Yes. So once again, just for anybody who's joining right now, Tanzania, October 7th through the 16th. Kenya, December 28th through January 8th of 2024. So those are the 2 trips right now. There may be more. I just came back from the Gambia 2.5 weeks ago. Looking forward to sharing that content with you. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. Kwame saying, wow, good on you on the travel and the 100K. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I've decided to take the content creation journey and building out an advertising agency on the continent here full time. And by doing so, it's really given me the opportunity to think through the kind of content that I'm putting out there and curating content and creating my own content. And I think that's you know, translated into a larger following and doubling my growth from the beginning of the year. I started the year with 50,000 followers on Instagram, and here we are 7 months later at 100K. So again, thank you guys so much for the assist, because it's because of you guys, right? I mean, it's because of all of you who follow along and who have been sharing the content. So I really appreciate it. Pro Women has an interesting question about the YouTube channel and one of the videos I did about the series on chaos. I'll answer that question. Appointed is. I'll answer your question in a second. So Proman J says, chaos question. What happens to toilet flushing? And number 2, when water goes and power goes. So toilets flush with water pressure. So as long as you have water in the house, which we would fill up those jerry cans, we would just pour that into the toilet. You can pour it into the tank in the back and just hit the flush and it flushes, or you could pour it directly into the bowl. And then what happens when power goes out? Lights out. That's what happens. Put stuff in the freezer to make sure that it stays cold. But yeah, that is exactly what happens. You got nothing. If you have a backup generator or if you have solar, then of course you can keep power going. But in the situation that I was in temporarily, which soon will be changing, there is no backup power at the moment. Okay, there's a question here about elaborating on dual citizenship. So I'll answer that question really quickly. Depending on who you are, there are two different ways to go about dual citizenship. I myself have two parents that were born in Sierra Leone. So I had to just be able to prove that they were born in Sierra Leone. So I had a marriage certificate that said country of origin and country of birth. And then I had a birth certificate from one of my parents. So that was how I was able to use that as proof of birth in Sierra Leone. And I did all of the processes in Sierra Leone to get my citizenship. To me, it only took 3 days because I had some connections. Now, if you don't have two parents or parents that were born in Sierra Leone, you can actually do a African Ancestry DNA test. And African Ancestry at this point in time is the only one recognized by the Sierra Leonean government. You can do African Ancestry DNA test. And if you are from one of the major tribes in Sierra Leone, it will say it in the test. And through African Ancestry or through another trip. There are a few people who do trips. Dory and the folks at Stafford Lodge do a trip. Dynast is another person who does a trip. Visit Sierra Leone does a trip. African Ancestry does a trip. But you have to go through one of the approved vendors, and those vendors will bring you to Sierra Leone, and you go through the citizenship process. Now, that process is much more detailed than the process that I went through. I went to the immigration, got my passport, and walked out. If you come through the ancestry portion, the homecoming portion, the diasporans who come through that way, you actually meet the president of Sierra Leone. He actually hands you your passport. You go through a naming ceremony from the tribe in which you're from, and most of the different groups that bring you. You do city tours. There are a number of different things that you do with that group. Whereas for me, it was just, I went there, I got it, and left. For you as a diasporan or someone of Sierra Leonean descent further back in your lineage, you have a whole trip that is anywhere between 7 and I think 12 days, depending on who you decide to go with. And the prices vary, but that's how it works. So hopefully that answers your question. Appointed is what it looks like the name says, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions or comments before we go. We're now an hour and 7 minutes in. So we'll answer a couple more questions before we go. It is a late night. So another question from the same person. So are all countries offering citizenship to those who have who have DNA linked to populated in those said countries? Okay, it's appointed Tez. Got it. Appointed Tez. So appointed Tez, unfortunately, no. Sierra Leone at this point is the only one offering citizenship through DNA. Now, there are other countries offering citizenship through their normal citizenship process, and some of them are expediting that process. Like Ghana has been speaking to expediting the 10-year process, making it less than 5 years. I have yet to see anyone except for Alita, who has a channel who helps people move. She's actually been able to get it, I think, in less than 5 years, but she's also helped over 25 people buy land in Ghana. So it would behoove them to make sure she gets citizenship because she's doing the work on the ground in Ghana. And there are other folks who lead trips to Ghana and stuff like that, who've gotten citizenship in less than 5 years and things like that. Someone like Bozoma St. John has gotten citizenship, even though she spends most of her time in the United States. But she's also gotten citizenship as well because she's a shining light of Ghana and the Ghana diaspora. Pro Woman has another question about the toilets. Oh, okay, so you can still flush the toilet. When I was in Tema, Ghana, I had to pour water in the toilet to flush it. Often works that way. Yes, exactly. It's the same way. Okay, cool. All right, guys. If there are okay, here we go. Miss S says the homecoming tour citizenship process is just 2 weeks. There you go. It's about 2 weeks. There you go. That answers that question. All right, before we go, any other questions or comments? I'll give like another 2 minutes for questions or comments before I get up out of here. because it is 10:09 right now, and I got to get some rest. And I still have some proposals to get out. I got 4 proposals tonight that I need to get out to companies that I've been talking to. Okay, PT is mentioning don't put your hair in locks. If you're heading to Zanzibar, new law coming in place. I guess we'll have to check that out. Miss S says, Joe, I have a question about mail. Do they have a lot of mailbox companies? Interesting question. So every country that I've been to so far on the continent has their own postal service, some of which are government-sponsored postal services, like the United States, like the USPS in the US, something similar to the USPS. And they do have postal services for the most part. I do think, though, you are going to have to look at each individual country differently and figure out what the rules and regulations and how they do it are. When I was in Ghana, I had a little bit of a challenge getting mail to the location I was in. So it would go to the local post office, and I'd have to go to the local post office to get it. You always want to put your phone numbers too if you're having stuff delivered like through DHL or something like that. Generally, they'll call you, and then you have to tell them when to come meet you at your house or how to get to your house using landmarks, etc. And so that's how it worked in Ghana. Here in Sierra Leone, I use a company or companies that deliver it to folks' offices, and then I have it picked up from those offices to come to me. So that's the way I do it in Sierra Leone. Rental mailboxes is a question, or through the postal service. It depends on the country, but yeah, I usually do it through corporate. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Let's see if I missed any questions. There's a bunch of people who's joining late on Instagram. If you guys are watching the replay, definitely go check out the full replay from the beginning because I think it'll be interesting. PT is talking about braids, not so much locks itself, but braided styles on men, not allowed under a new law. This is in Tanzania, you're saying. Interesting. Okay. Or in Zanzibar in particular. Okay. I'll have to look into that. I'm not as familiar with that. I would have been not approved then because I had locks for 13 years. How long did I have locks for? 11 years. I had locks for 11 years until 2017. Cut them. Okay, cool. Any other comments, questions, concerns, thoughts before we bring this thing to a close? All right, guys. I think we have solved all the world's problems and we've answered all the questions. So again, if you want to join me in Tanzania or Kenya, go to, if you're watching this on any platform such as LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, you can just click on the link in the description. And there's a link there that says how you can join me in Tanzania. And you can also see, so you can do that there. And if you are watching on Instagram or on TikTok, you want to click on the link in my description and you can see how you can join me in either Kenya or Tanzania there. Traverse Culture just showed up. What's up? They're who I'm going to Kenya with. And so you want to make sure you check out the details on that trip as well. Again, that is December 28th through January 8th. Okay. And so again, there's some more conversations about the whole braid situation in Tanzania. Yes, read about the challenge of braids, not locks. Okay, there you go. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate it as always. If you guys know anybody who's planning to travel to the continent at all, or who's interested at all in things happening on the continent, make sure you share this video with them. Tracy Getter says, I'm showing how matriarchs of women are beyond Antarctica. I'm showing how these women are waiting for us to wake up and come home. I'm also showing how to get there. Okay, that's Tracy Getter talking about their platform. Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. As always, appreciate it. Share this with 3 people you know. Make sure you subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, hit that notification bell. Hit the one that says all so you're notified every time a new video comes out. And with that, guys, thanks for watching. I will see you all on the next video.